Details just coming in of how the IDF identified that a short while ago, missiles were launched from Iran towards the territory of the State of Israel. Defense systems are operating to intercept those threats. In the last few minutes, the Home Front Command issued a preliminary directive directly to mobile phones in the relevant areas. After drones and missiles hit Israel cities, the public has been requested to exercise responsibility and act in accordance with the directives in a bid to save lives. One must enter protected spaces upon receiving the alert and remain in them until a new announcement is how IDF has issued those directives to people to only exit from the protected space. That will be permitted only after receiving an explicit directive. Continue to act in accordance with Home Front Command directives. Israel has put out a message to its citizens to stay in protected bunkers and areas, protected spaces, and they must act in accordance with the directive issued by the authorities. Mayan Hoffman now joining us from Jerusalem to take us through further details of the directives that have been issued to all citizens to ensure their safety, and with regards to these latest strikes that have been launched.
Sure. So we just had 7 large explosions, interceptions above central Israel near the Tel Aviv area, but the IDF Home Front Command has already allowed Israelis to exit their bomb shelters. They said at this point, all is safe. The alert went off around 10 minutes ago when people were asked to run to their shelters. But as I said, now they've said all clear and everything has been intercepted. This is not the first round today. We had rockets also in the middle of the night, several rounds throughout the night. During one of those, there was a strike down and a 10-year-old girl was lightly injured after some shrapnel fell on a building and ignited a fire. But by and large, they have been intercepted. The IDF has said that they have struck more than 300 ballistic missile launchers since the beginning of the offensive, and just interesting numbers that I think you would good for the viewers to hear. That 80% of Iran's air defenses have been eradicated by Israel. 60% of its missile launchers. That's according to the IDF chief of staff, who shared those numbers last night. They've also issued some evacuation orders to at least 2 neighborhoods of Iran as they close up that 12th wave of firing and are getting ready to launch what they say is the next round of the offensive, and we're expecting to see that very soon. So, what they're saying is that Israelis can start to feel safe. We've had rescue flights, of the 100,000 stranded Israelis begin to touch down, and they're telling us that on Sunday and possibly even Saturday night, we might see some outgoing flights from Israel. So that's real reassurance that the IDF is achieving its goals.
Oh yes, the IDF is achieving its goals, Mayan, but also the hit that civilians have to bear the brunt of it. And given the fact that this will continue in the days to come, doesn't look like there are signs of de-escalation at this point for all the reserves in terms of essentials, in terms of how the civilians are coping with it.
That's correct. I mean, what we're seeing is that people are still, rather tense, but they are feeling good when they hear those kind of numbers coming out of the IDF and letting us know that they're getting closer. What they've been saying is that we're about 1 to 2 weeks out from the conclusion of this campaign, which seems long on the one hand, but seems short when you think about, the last escalation was 12 days. This one maybe 12 to, 18 days. But ultimately, it seems like the IDF is making headway. When you talk about, 80% of the launchers being stopped, they talked about yesterday an 86% reduction in the amount of attacks that Iran was able to carry out against Israelis since day one of the war. So those are very reassuring numbers for the people. That, of course, doesn't stop us running to bomb shelters. That doesn't stop the ability to, the children are still off school. Everybody is learning on Zoom. And that does not appear to be ending anytime soon. You can imagine that trying to get children to a shelter is much more difficult than adults. Also, we've seen a lot of injuries in terms of the elderly running to those bomb shelters. They're not maybe able, and they run, they fall, they get hurt. We've even had a couple of people die of injuries from rushing to bomb shelters. And the other thing I would say, and you were talking about Hezbollah and Lebanon before, as you know, the the IDF is striking very, very strongly in Lebanon. And as a result, Hezbollah is striking back. And in the northern area, in the Golan and the Galil, there are quite a number of sirens, even more actually than what you're seeing in the center from the Iranians. And the IDF said over the weekend as well, or just going into the weekend, that there is concern that the Houthis might get involved. They were expecting the Houthis in Yemen to be involved already. They haven't joined yet, but there is an expectation that that might happen soon.
All right, Mayan, I request you to stay on with us.